the last trick of the trade, and this is kind of a tough one because there's not really exactly a formula for it, but I do want to bring it up because I haven't talked about anywhere, and that is titles. Hollywood is, generally speaking, really good at coming up with titles, and they put a lot of work into what that should be. And titles are all not always the same, but there are some sort of earmarks of good titles. So Hollywood values succinct titles, not ones that are long, explanatory, lots of words, very verbose. Okay, that's one thing. Another thing Hollywood titles do is they generally are not on the nose. They generally don't say, this is what you're going to see exactly in this movie. So they'll often be, at the same time, both a little oblique, a little hinting at what it's about, but making you kind of curious about it, but at the same time, not making up something that doesn't give us some sense of it. It will relate to what's going on, or sometimes it will be kind of a double, not double entendre, that sounds sort of nasty, but they'll have two meanings. And a good example of that is Hidden Figures. Okay, so I don't know, that doesn't have a lot of punch to it, but it does make us curious, like what's Hidden Figures about? And it actually has three meanings if you think about it. One is, it means there are hidden in the numbers. The numbers will tell the truth. That's said several times in that movie. And so it's like, well, these hidden figures you're gonna find the secret of how, in this case, to get John Glenn back to Earth. This is about how important math is and those numbers are. The second is hidden figures meaning people. These people have been hidden. Because they're African American, nobody really sees them. Nobody sees them certainly for the talent they have, the skill they have, or the potential they have. So they're hidden in that way. And then the idea that they're women, the hidden figure part of it, conveys this sort of, the shape of a woman and so on. So the fact that they're black, the fact that they're women, and the fact that the numbers themselves are hard to unearth and they're going to be the ones to do it, when you know all that, it's a really clever kind of title. And then Karate Kid, that was tricky because, as you know, I consulted on the second one, and one of the big questions we had is, if this is about Kung Fu, how can we call it Karate Kid? But if we don't call it the Karate Kid, no one's going to know it's a remake of that really popular movie. And so the way they got around, this wasn't my idea, I'm sorry to say, but it was kind of a clever way to do it, is they just had a kid who who pretended he knew karate when he first met the bully, and then learned Kung Fu because he met Mr. Han. So it got out of that. But both the old movie and then the remake, for a different reason, that was a short, clever title. We know it's a sports movie about karate, and we know it involves a kid, and so that tells us a lot without giving away too much of the story. Now, the reason I say this, and I'm mentioning these things, and all of the titles of all the examples, if you look at it, they're going to be that. They're succinct, and they relate to what's going on without saying what it is. I mean, Green Book. Most people in this day and age, or at this time in history, don't know or didn't know before they saw the movie what the Green Book was. That's fine, but it is intriguing. It's succinct and it's intriguing, and it's enough to pique your interest, and also it's easy to remember. But what they didn't call it is, a bouncer who's a bigot drives a black man through the South. That would be a bad title for the movie. So I'm sort of making a joke because it's obviously way too long, but this is what you're shooting for. Now, a lot of times this won't come into play because you're telling a story and there is no title, but there are certain cases when you're going to be making a presentation to a group, and they're going to put the title of your presentation in the program, or when they're promoting it, or if you're having a webinar and you want to give the webinar a name and a title. Now, in some webinars, you just want to say, this is what this is going to do for you. But when it comes to just telling a story, or even the title of your book, if you're having a nonfiction book, what you want to do is the same thing. You want to make it as succinct as you can. Don't make it long and drawn out. You can have subtitles to do that if you want, but make it succinct, make it intriguing, and certainly connected to what it is you're talking about. What I don't like are speech titles that say, this is the message. And, I would not have much interest, honestly, in seeing someone give a speech on why you should be courageous. And yet, on some level, lots and lots of speeches are about why we should be courageous. And by the way, I still wouldn't be that interested. What I'm interested in knowing is how can we be courageous? That's another issue. But telling us we should be courageous is not something you really want to be doing. That nobody can take anything away from that. We know that. We want to know how. How can we overcome the fear we have? But you don't want to title it that. You don't want to make the title of your speech the message. If you're in a competition, like a Toastmasters competition, you want it to be the same as a movie, succinct and a little oblique and allude to what you're going to talk about, but don't just be on the nose and say, the title of my speech is the message I want you to take away. That's not a good idea.